should be able to balance the size of the sun and make it so it stops expanding, just like, and then preserve our planet that way so that it
Mm.
doesn't get too hot. And then the way I was thinking of doing that is with an electro laser. So you basically electrify gas, turn it into, and then shoot the sun with the laser. Because at first I was like, we're just going to shoot hydrogen into it, but that seemed really weird. Like, what do we do? Drop hydrogen? No. So if we can just like aim lasers at the sun and hit it with electro, that might actually work.
So, welcome to another episode of Chatter. Today we have Ian Crossland, co-host of TimCastIRL and self-confessed DMT, graphene, and Federal Reserve bashing enthusiast.
I really do love DMT.
Well,
like
I
it a
mean,
lot.
yeah. When you talked to, like, where did you first even like hear about this?
Oh, probably I was like 20, 28, 27. At first I'd heard about mushrooms, and then acid I'd always known about, but then I don't remember. I was in Venice, California and hanging out with a bunch of hippies, and then all of a sudden I started hearing about DMT, and like I'd never heard of it before 2007 or something. And then all of a sudden I hear it. People are like, you got to smoke. This guy has got to smoke DMT. Like, I was making YouTube videos and I'd get this comment every once in a while. I was like, I don't even know what it is. And then I have a really good friend who was like, oh, you're going to love DMT. And then I started to find out it's produced in the brain in every living creature and how organic it is. I don't know the molecular structure of it, but it's like a supernatural ingredient, basically.
Like one of my best friends is like constantly teetering on the edge of trying of thinking he's going to try it. So we've one friend that has tried it, but he won't say much about it. And like we're like, what fascinates you about it more than like say LSD or mushrooms? Like what makes you so, I don't know, like enthusiastic about it?
I've only smoked it once and I didn't take a huge hit. They say you want to take it and break through, where you hold it in a huge hit and you hold it in for as long as you can, and then you like release it and you go into this like transcendental, experience. I didn't do that. I didn't take it that far. I just puffed on it, and I had like a purifying experience. The thing I noticed the most about it that's different from like mushrooms and acid was how clean I felt when it was done. It was like it was very to use that word clean in regards to using a substance was like, I've never felt like that pure after I took a drug. If you can even call it a drug, it's like an organic chemical compound.
I mean, like there's a lot of people who've spoken about how they think that maybe Moses was like inhaling or like inhaling some sort of like DMT when he had the burning bush, because they think it was, is it the acacia bush?
Yeah.
And that's like rich in DMT, and they think that when he was like, when the burning bush is like a metaphor for like even just like exactly this bush that was on fire, and that he like breathed in the fumes and then he felt like he was speaking to God. And a lot of people have described like taking DMT as like a religious experience. And like did you like that sort of like clean feeling that you're talking about would sort of suggest that's not uncommon?
Probably not. Yeah, I imagine if it was like a super intensified experience, how it would have cleansed other aspects of my being. Like when I took it, I was sitting in a room with some friends, and we went to this guy's house to meet up with him and smoke some DMT. And I just met the guy, and the guy was brewing algae in his room. He had all these tanks behind him of like bubbling, and they were green, like, and bubbling, and the algae was growing in these tanks. And it was like, that was trippy enough when we got there. And then we smoked the DMT, and I just like watched him, and he was like sinking into his chair, and I could see him being like sucked down to the earth. I could see his skin just being pulled, and I saw gravity at work. And like, I think in life right now, we're being sucked down. We're just so desensitized to the way it makes our bodies look that we don't see it. But this DMT like resensitized me to the superstructure. And I was like, oh, I'm on Earth. I'm near a planet that's pulling me that's sucking us towards it. Wow. So that's kind of made me want to smoke it in space.
Yeah, I was about to ask, like, do you think if you smoked it in space, you get like a different experience of
Yeah.
what you're witnessing?
Yeah, definitely.
Oh, it's a good thing I got my ticket to the moon.
Yeah, me too.
With my GMT stock.
We got to go into orbit and smoke some DMT.
You reckon you could convince Elon Musk that that's like a necessary like test for when he's launching his rockets? You'd be like, look, Elon, we're not going to pay for the tickets, but it's for research purposes.
Maybe not necessary, but valuable. I think I could convince him it would be a valuable test.
You have to get Tim to get him on the podcast and then pitch it to him.
Yeah, I want to talk about AI with them. AI simulation theory and definitely DMT.
I mean, like, yeah, you're familiar with his like theory on why he thinks we're in a simulation. Like, for anyone listening, it's basically that if humanity gets to the point where we can produce like lifelike simulations, that we will, and we won't simply stop at one. So if it's something that we are capable of in the future, then the chances of us not being in it are like infinitesimal compared to the amount of different like simulation worlds that we create. Like, yeah, what do you are we in a simulation?
I don't know. I do take issue with that statement. I've heard him make that statement that if it's possible that technology has like a zero-sum game, or however you want to look at it, that it's constantly building towards this system that we build, that eventually one day we will build it, that it is likely that it has already happened. I think that just because something is possible and even likely doesn't mean that it is probable. So there's a chance we're in that we've created a simulation that we're inside of right now, but I would never use the word likely. I think he's kind of alluded to the belief that it's likely that we're in a simulation. I just haven't gone that far. I think that we're simulating like vibration as senses. We call them senses, sight. We're simulating like ones and zeros that are bouncing off of our nervous system, and then we're recalculating it as like sight, sound. So in that sense, we're simulating the experience. And yes, so that is a form of simulation. But whether or not we're in like a machine that we built, I don't know. It seems unlikely to me, but in no way does that make it not possible. So I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, there's very few things that aren't possible.
Yeah. And I would even think that we will build that in the future. I just don't know if we have yet.
Yeah. I mean, do you know who Graham Hancock is?
I love him. Yeah.
Like, who's to say that ancient civilization that he talks about weren't capable of something like that?
I wonder about that, like Atlantis or the people even around that time, like the I don't know who the Denisovans, whoever they were, but I'm kind of working on a screenplay about that, and I wonder if they had electricity. I think like the Atlas, the king of Mauritania, who they apparently named Atlantis after, and the Atlantic Ocean after, developed the first globe. He's credited with building the first globe, and so I think that means that they were the first to circumnavigate the world and to know that it was round. And I wonder if they had, in my movie and in my dreams, I think like, oh, maybe they had radio, maybe they were able to communicate with their boats like over long distances. And then like maybe they had like Tesla cannon, maybe they had like lightning rod, like they could shoot arc electricity, because electricity is not that complex. The Baghdad battery in ancient Egypt, they could produce light bulbs and stuff in the pyramids. There's no smoke in or fire marks in any of the pyramids because they've got images of like holding these big batteries. What you do is you take a clay pot with an iron rod wrapped with copper wire, and then you fill it with vinegar, and it produces an electrical charge. And you link up a bunch of those pots together, and you can produce a really powerful electrical charge. And like Zeus is credited with shooting lightning and controlling lightning. So that makes me think that he had access to some sort of electricity and just told people it was magic.
Yeah, I've never considered that before, actually. That being, because yeah, as soon as you start to consider, like, because the Graham Hancock talks in, I'm just sort of at the tail end of Fingerprints of the Gods. And then I want to move on to some of his other work, but I wanted to start with the first book when I started reading his stuff. And once you start thinking about the idea that all of these ancient creation myths were based on pretty real events, because like he kind of alludes to the idea in Fingerprints of the Gods that a lot of these kind of like catastrophic like creation events like volcanoes and tidal waves and rising seas were all like actual events, and that this is like the closest thing we have to memory of these things. And then when he did his work with Randall Carlson, and they discovered that there was some like seriously big asteroid impacts around 14,000 and 11,000 years ago that like they believe started and ended the last ice age. Although I know there's like a Utah thing where they think that we're still coming out of the end of the last ice age, but like the globe was actually like experiencing all these like catastrophic events, and that like we, as soon as you start to consider that those are potentially like based on very real events, then your mind can really start to run, and they're like, right, well, what other creation myths and like gods and demigods myths are like also based on like real things?
Yeah. Have you heard of the Vimana?
No, I
There
don't
were
think so.
there's these ancient flying machines, and apparently there's a sultan, the Arabian Nights. I think this story is based off of a guy that would fly around in his Vimana, this king, and he had like, they said like he had his entire, I don't know if his entire palace or his entire kingdom on a flying ship, but he must have had it. When I think about that, I think hot air balloons probably were very common. When I think of like the angels and the demons of the biblical history, they could fly, and I think they had hang gliders, and they had like that kind of like gliding tech. But they were just told people they could fly because they were like, you know, taking advantage of these people. And the Vimana, maybe they had a bunch of hot air balloons and they would fly these giant platforms around. That's fascinating to me. And they would like, yeah, the story of the Vimana is pretty cool.
Yeah, I mean, you look at the Nazca lines, and you had to have been able to see, like someone had to have been able to look at that from the air for them to have bothered to make that on the ground. You know, unless they legit believe that it's for the gods to see. But I can't see people dedicating something like that without being able to like look at it themselves. Do you know what I
Yeah,
mean?
they're too accurate to do without. I would think that to do without seeing it from above. They're so like organized and structured, and what you really don't even see what it is until you get high up.
Mm. Yeah, I mean, I've seen some photos that people have taken from like planes and whatnot from like 10,000 feet, and at like that point you get like a real idea of like not only like the scale of these things, but just like how that's the only vantage point. Like even if you're on like a mountain nearby, you still don't get the same like idea of how they look from like right above them.
And what's a hot air balloon? It's like a big canvas. Could be animal skin, could be cotton. I don't know. You could just make a big canvas and then you heat the air up with fire, and it floats. And if people, they all they did was sit around and stare at the sky. I mean, they basically had all the time in the world over millennia, thousands and tens and hundreds of probably hundreds of thousands of years to figure this, to experiment and do this stuff. I'd be blown away if they didn't have at least hot air balloon tech. And
Yeah.
if you put electricity into that, I don't know if they really ever got into orbit. I've never seen any evidence that they escaped the atmosphere, but I'm almost undoubtedly that they were flying.
Yeah, I mean, like there's the thing that the one of the things that like really like convinced me that Graham Hancock's work was like credible was when he starts talking about the Piri Reis map, and it's a map of the globe drawn in like 1300, like before Columbus had like landed in America, and I think it was then anyway, but it was like somewhere in the Middle Ages, and the map, the guy who drew it, Piri Reis, he said that it was based on older maps that were from the Library of Alexandria, and they have like perfect like dimensions of like the edges of all the continents, like because latitude's super easy to measure because all you need is the sun, but longitude is a bitch. Like it's super difficult to calculate. We only figured that out in like the late 1700s, and yet this map that's based on maps that were some thousands of years old was totally accurate to like the contours of the edges of the continents. And like if they were able to figure that out, like something that took us until like the late 17th or the late 18th century, like I think it's inconceivable to think that they didn't at least have some sort of like hang glider technology or hot air balloons or something. Like if they were sophisticated enough to work out a machine that calculated longitude at sea, then surely they should have been able to fly.
Yeah, and it makes me think that they had physics. that they'd started to experiment with like complex mathematics. And maybe I keep thinking that they hoarded knowledge and stored it on the island of Atlantis and like kept it in the palace. At least this is how I write the story. And when the mud flood came, when the tidal wave just surged mud up over the palace and destroyed everything, all that knowledge was lost. And some of it escaped. Like some knowledge escaped into Eastern Africa, into Egypt, and into Turkey, to the what's that big temple in Turkey called?
Göbekli Tepe.
Yeah, Göbekli Tepe, where all these people, it looks like they harbored after the cataclysm. But maybe not all the information. And if they're mapping the globe, that takes some serious, I think it takes math. I don't know, to be honest. I'm definitely not an expert.
It's got to require math, because like the machine to calculate longitude, like the most difficult thing is to get it to work at sea, because something to do with like the way the waves like screw with the machine while it's moving. And also, like, to be able to calculate that stuff, you have to have like serious mathematics. But even just the amount of like calculations it required to build things like the pyramids, like you gotta be, they have to have had seriously complex and accurate like construction and mathematics in order to make something like that.
The way they would cut the stone, especially. There's the theory that makes the most sense to me about how they build those is that they have like wooden trellises and lattices around it as they were building, and that they would flood like these ramps with water, and then they'd put the blocks in the water. They'd actually cut the blocks in the water, and the blocks would be floating, and then they'd be able to turn the blocks and cut them as they would turn them, and they would keep the workers cool while they would work, and then they'd be covered, and then they'd float the blocks up. There's these like videos of this on YouTube, and they can show the actual construction. They'd float the blocks up these like channels, and then like drop some wood down to stop it, and then they'd float them up the rest of the way. And when they got up there, they'd drop another like stopper down, and then they'd float them up, and that's how they would get the blocks up.
Whoa, I didn't know that. Sounds seriously cool. I have to check that out.
Yeah, and I think that the pyramids were like filled with water. You see these like tiny little channels, like angular holes dug from like chamber to chamber, and like they're obviously not for people. People don't fit through them, and so I'm imagining that they used them like batteries. Like they tipped them with gold for some reason. The top tip. It could have just been a spiritual thing, but gold's also a superconductor. And I've heard that they're above like what are they called? These telluric current pathways in the earth, so that they're tapping into like some vibrative energy field. I don't know if they use the water in the pyramids actually to enhance the electricity, but other than that, I cannot figure for the life of me what they would have been used for. Like they say they're tombs, but there's water channels and stuff, and the like fluid channels. I don't know what those would have been for.
Yeah, I mean, like there's that theory that those like the shafts that are cut at those specific angles are like a mathematical kind of like game, because of the way the angles kind of line up with like different like mathematical formulas, like especially I think the ratios involved in like the actual like shape of the pyramid itself is like all centered around the number pi. And there's a theory that this was like a message through the ages to tell people that they understood mathematics in a way that could never be lost.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, it's a cool one. I mean, like, there's so much speculation you can go into about ancient Egypt in itself fascinates me. I mean, like, have you heard the story that Napoleon spent a night inside the Great Pyramid, right down in the King's Chamber, I think it is, and he came out in the morning like looking like white as a ghost and freaked out as fuck, and then like would never talk about it.
Oh, wild. They would like cut people's brains open, the Egyptians, and they found the Eye of Horus, what they called it was basically the pineal gland in the middle of the brain, and where the DMT is produced in this pineal gland in the middle of your brain. And they were so drawn to that thing, that gland, that they created a holy symbol out of it. Like if you look at it from the side, and they called it the Eye of Horus, the third eye.
Yeah.
I didn't know that's what human brains.
Yeah, I didn't know that's what that represented. That's really cool.
Isn't that nuts? Yeah, look at a pineal gland, a brain dissected, and you see the Eye of Horus. It looks like the Eye of Horus.
That's the same one that you got above the what do you call it? Above the pyramid on the dollar sign, right?
Yeah, I think so. Let me look. Yeah, on the
Or on the
American, like the all-seeing eye.
yeah.
Is it the Eye of Horror? That's fucking. That's freaky, dude.
I'm not sure. I like that's just pure speculation right now.
No, no, it's a more of a just a regular looking eye. Isn't that crazy that on the American dollar there's like the eye of Mordor
Yeah.
staring at us? What the fuck is that supposed to represent? That they're always watching?
Maybe. I mean, maybe it was. Yeah, I don't know. You have to ask the Masons. They're the ones that they were all Masons, were they not? Like all the founding fathers.
And there's a bunch of Latin all over the dollar. It's crazy
Mm.
how like cryptic it is.
Was Latin still spoken at that time?
When they made these Federal Reserve notes, I don't think so. This is like in the last 100 years that they. Although I don't know the history of the all-seeing eye atop the pyramid. That's a fuck on a pyramid. It's the American dollar. It's the all-seeing eye over a pyramid.
Yeah.
Like what do the pyramids have to do with the United States?
I have no idea. I mean,
Yeah, maybe someone does.
yeah. I mean, like, I just want to Google that right now. Actually, let's have a look at this. Why is there a pyramid on the dollar?
It's crazy. Maybe I can bring one up and look at it.
It says the pyramid was seen as a kind of human structure that lasted out the ages. But the pyramid and the eye wasn't on the dollar bill until 1935.
Wow.
Hmm.
You know why they added it?
Just looking on Wikipedia here. It's called the Eye of Providence. Meant to represent divine providence, whereby the eye of God watches over humanity.
Oh, that's supposed to be the eye of God.
Yeah. I mean, that kind of makes sense.
Yeah, I'm gonna bring up an image of it on my monitor. It's so nuts.
Yeah, isn't it? Yeah, the symbolism generally just like fascinates me. I mean, like I always loved, I know it's a bit of a cliched film, but like National Treasure, I always enjoyed like their little treasure hunt, sort of like, and looking at the symbology, and like all of the Dan Brown books as well, even though he's not like the greatest author in the world. Like I really enjoy his books, like the Da Vinci Code and whatnot. Like it takes a long time to figure out a story based on like symbology like that, especially when it's just like he's like, I love the way he kind of like weaves history and fiction in one, where you can't really tell what's exactly true and what's not, and like after you finish reading, you have to go and check what's true and what's not.
What did you read why there's a pyramid? Why they have a pyramid on the dollar?
Yeah, it says it's pyramids went to be it's meant to be a human structure that lasted out the ages. So it's like meant to be like a symbol of like, I don't know, fortitude and like, I can't think of the right word. That like basically that they want to symbolize that the dollar or America will last as long as the pyramids have, because it is one of the oldest and biggest structures that humanity has ever created. I find that mad. They're like at least a few thousand years old, maybe older, and they're still like one of the largest structures that humans have ever built.
Those things are incredible. That thing of the Latin phrase on the dollar, it means a new order of the ages. It's so manipulative. I mean, whatever. They built a currency to try and keep people in order, so I get it. But man, that's subversive shit.
Yeah. I mean, that kind of like leads us nicely on to the Federal Reserve, which you love.
Exactly.
Yeah. So like,
it's not even a dollar, it's a Federal Reserve note.
Yeah, Federal Reserve. Exactly. The dollar is long gone as the founders envisioned it. I didn't know that the Federal Reserve was only like 100 years old until I started looking into it. Yeah. And I don't even think that like a lot of people realize that like the Federal Reserve isn't actually like it's not a thing it's not a federal entity. It's like a private bank that has the right, that is the only bank that has the right to print the dollar as they see fit. And then they're loaning it essentially to America. It's so mad.
It's like crazy.
Like who thought that system up?
John Rockefeller, Paul Warburg, JP Morgan, and some other friends of theirs. And basically when John Rockefeller's Standard Oil got broken up by the American government, he got pissed and decided, I'm not going to let them fuck me over again. Let's take control of the monetary supply this time. So they all got together and JP Morgan's like, well, he ran the copper industry and was like, I don't want to get fucked over either. Yeah, let's take control of the money. So 1913, they wrote up the Federal Reserve Act. They got Woodrow Wilson to sign it while Congress was out in like, around Christmas on Jekyll Island. And Woodrow Wilson was like, what have I done? I've sold our country out afterwards after he realized what he'd done. And Congress, who has the power and the authority and the right and basically the job to print and control the monetary supply, has basically outsourced the process to this I don't know, call it paramilitary, but this like this private bank. Best way to phrase it, I guess. It's the arm of the global banking industry, the Bank for International Settlements, International Monetary Fund. This Bank for International Settlements is the thing. If you want to know where it all is happening, it's at the Bank for International Settlements in Switzerland. All the central banks are passing money through it to each other.
Okay, I didn't know that. I mean, I wonder. Yeah, you wonder why no one's ever invaded Switzerland.
Yep, it's mountainous, but the banks are also making people very happy.
Fucking
but it
beautiful.
is mountainous. That's why they couldn't get in there in the early days. Is the Swiss pikemen would just I don't know, it was the Germans, but people would just keep trying to invade. The Romans maybe, but the Swiss dealt like a devastating blow to an army, like a massive army that was trying to invade because they were up in the mountains and they ambushed them. And ever since, they basically made a name for themselves, like "Don't fuck with us." And then they built the banks,
like 300 style.
Yeah, hardcore.
Where's the film?
Pretty awesome.
That could be a next.
I don't know. You're right. That's hot.
I'd pay to see that. Like you could spend as many months as you want, like on set filming in Switzerland as well. Like
that'd be awesome.
Yeah, I was there for the first time this summer. I got to interview a dude who wrote a book called The Little Book of Stoicism. And I was just like, any chance you want to do an interview? And he was like, yeah, but I'm in Switzerland. And I was like, interesting. I won't be very far from there. And so I went down to Bern in Switzerland, and it's so beautiful. Like you're just sitting there, like by this like crystal clear blue lake with like 4,000 meter high mountains in the background, like all capped with snow in the middle of summer. And the water is so clear and clean. You gotta go, but it's an absolute fortune. I was there for like 3 days, and I think I spent like 2 weeks of budget.
Wow. No joke.
Yeah, but definitely worth it. So why do you think people don't know like that much about the Federal Reserve? Like, do you think it's just kind of ignorance at I don't know how complicated the money supply is, or like how economics works, or like is it something more kind of like deliberate, making sure that people don't understand?
There is an ignorance involved. It takes like a special kind of person to seek out information that they don't know exists, but also it's by design. It's called federal, so that it makes people not even think about it. They just assume it's a federal agency, and they don't teach about it in the school system. Like basically Henry Ford, John Rockefeller put this modern American school system together. I don't know. It may even be permeated the globe for all I know, but like it was like the 1920s when they built the school system as they have. They kind of reinvented the osteopathic medical industry and the schooling system all at once in the Federal Reserve, and they want to kind of take control of society to create these factory workers where you wait for the bell to ring, and then you go to your next job, and then you wait, and you don't speak unless you raise your hand. You ask for permission to do stuff. They're getting you ready for like military service, and like the whole bell ringing thing is getting you ready for factory jobs. And there's so many schools where it flows. There's not like classes, like Montessori schools where you go and you learn at your own pace. But these schools were specifically put in place for a reason, and the curriculums they teach is like, it's all the same everywhere in the country for these public schools. And they didn't ever mention the Federal Reserve to me growing up. They didn't mention they didn't even teach me how to write a check in school. I had to, like, they don't get you ready to start a business. Those are like special private schools where kids, they send their wealthy kids to become the owners. This is for like the followers, is this public school system.
I mean, school does not prepare you for life in any way, shape, or form.
Not these public schools. I think there are schools that can, but the ones I went to didn't. I don't know about you.
No, well, I mean, yeah, mine was essentially a public school. It's called a grammar school. I don't know if you have them in America.
Yeah. They call them elementary schools.
Yeah.
Elementary school, then it goes to middle school, which is like 6 through 8, and then high school, which is like 9 through 12.
Yeah, we just have like primary school, which is like 5 to 11, and then we have secondary school or grammar school or whatever kind of school you end up going to from like 11, 12 to like 16 to 18.
I meant grades. So like elementary school would be
Oh, okay.
grades 0 to 5, which is like kindergarten, and then first grade, second. And then middle school is 6th grade through 8th grade. And you're like 12, 13, and 14. So you go to school, start school when you're 5. And then high school is, uh, you know, grade 9 through 12, basically.
Yeah, it's weird how different places split the schooling system up. Like we just
Yeah.
have, like Austria has a weird, like they have this really cool system actually where I am now, where like like the last few years of your schooling, they is up to like 19, and a lot of people will go to like kind of specialized schools. So there's quite a few people I know, they're in like hospitality schools, or you're in like an engineering school or a mechanics school, or like it's quite split up in that, like they're like teaching you to specialize in a specific like area of work. So it's like it seems to like prepare you better for the world of work. Like okay, yeah, people go on to university afterwards, but a lot of people will just like do that, and then they're ready for their career, which is really cool. Actually, I find that like it's probably better to like prepare people for the world of work a little more.
Yeah. Yeah. Like we have college. There's also like trade school where you'll go and like study. They used to do like, what would it call when you would go study under a master, like apprenticeship. Those
Mm,
are kind of cool too. I find like being able to work with an expert, having a mentor, actually, if you talk to successful people in general, they pretty much all say I had a mentor that got me there. And like that, it's such a big deal to be able to work with someone that's done it, been there, and knows what they're doing, and to give you that one-on-one attention and to kind of
yeah.
guide you through those first unknown years.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, yeah, having someone to like help you not just learn, but learn how to learn from your mistakes, and like figure out like, and even if you're gonna go and make the same mistakes as them, they can still advise you on like how to move forward from that, and stuff like that. It's
Mm-hmm.
yeah, it's definitely helpful. But I think all of us have found a mentor right now in deep fucking value on investing.
Oh, what's that?
Deep fucking value is it's the Reddit user who started off the whole GameStop thing.
Interesting.
He like, and he posts every day on Wall Street Bets. And he's just like, like he just puts it as like, it's like his post is always entitled GME YOLO. And then like the entire comment thread is just like, if he's still in, I'm still in. And
Where's GME
uh,
nowadays? Are you
uh,
in on that?
I am. Hang on, I'll tell you what it's sitting at right now. I haven't got a lot because I'm broke as fuck, but I got in on a little bit because I couldn't sit this out.
If it's
There was
above 320, I'm gonna be happy.
I would suspect it's very much lower than that.
So people started to sell last week.
No, actually, there's this really weird thing going on. It's only at 95. There's this really weird thing going on where people are suggesting that hedge funds are selling between each other. They're like small amounts of shares that they have, like pushing the price down and down and down. But I keep seeing reports that they still have like loads and loads of short positions that still need to be cashed in, and that they bought the short positions when it was at like $35. So they need to push it down below that, but that they're freaking out because the Reddit users are just idiots and they just won't sell.
So when they sell amongst each other, are they? Oh, then they just sell it back. So I'll sell to you for like 85, and you'll sell it back to me for 84, and then 83, and it makes it look like the price is going down. All these sales. Oh, it's insidious.
That's the suggestion of what's going on. I mean, and like the weird thing that I can't get my head around. Like I'd love to talk to someone about finance, about like seriously understands this shit, but I can't find anyone that like actually knows what's going on, because it's but like they're suggesting that they're just they're selling it between each other, but like the buy to sell ratios, like the amount of buy orders that are coming in is still like way exceeding the sell ratios, and people are questioning how the most popular and most in demand stock in the world can still be going down in price.
Yeah, that's insidious. I think that's why we have an SEC for security. They call it security for a reason.
No, the securities is because if you like, that's the name of the financial product. It's like securities. It's the Securities and Exchange Commission.
Yeah, and they call them security because they're supposed to be secure. So to see this bullshit is making me think that they're missing the point, or that they're involved in it.
Yeah, I mean, I think they're I can't say like what's going to happen, but boy, has it been fun. Like the memes alone, they've just made it so worth it.
I saw people like say fuck it when Robinhood basically got in on it, and the crypto market's up 10%. It was at 1.1 trillion up this week from 1 trillion like a week ago.
Yeah. I mean, I keep seeing these amazing reports of like about how Bitcoin's going to tank and the crypto market's all going to fall apart. And I keep just being like, no, it's not. Don't be ridiculous.
Those people are writing articles like that so that people will sell so that they can buy it back up, basically. It's just counter. It's counter to the US dollar. And is if they inflate more dollars, the crypto is going to continue to rise, not at the exact same rate because they're trying to obfuscate it, but it's impossible. I mean, it's based in the value of the dollar.
Yeah, well, I mean, you're printing like loads of dollars. Yeah. Like every country in the world is just printing money like it's going out of fashion.
I think France is like France, Germany, England. The GDP ratio is like 223%. Debt to GDP ratio.
Yeah, I think the UK hit 120%. We weren't too bad. Let me double check.
France might be number one right now. Well, yeah, let's check out the US national debt while we're at it.
UK debt
27 trillion last I looked.
Oh, our debt to GDP is only 85%. Actually,
that's not bad.
France is at 98%, and Germany's at 59%. That's what.
I saw some numbers that were giving like over 200%.
Yeah, I thought it was way higher, actually, if I'm honest.
Hang
on. Sorry, 1 second. That's only 2019.
Oh.
I do apologize. That's what the thing is saying.
So that's what it was in 2019, and now.
Yeah, let me find if I can get something up to date. Government debt and deficit. Here we are, UK. It's amazing that you can't find the 2020 figure on Google.
Yeah, they.
Financial year ending 2020.
I actually just started using DuckDuckGo. I use Brave as the browser and DuckDuckGo as the search engine. It's kind of nice.
Yeah, it's still saying it's only for the year ending 2020, the financial year ending 2020. So that was April. So they don't have the official figure right now for like up. So we'll be getting the official figure soon, I guess. Here's something from June saying that the GDP has exceeded 100% now in the UK. It was in May. So yeah, it's tipped over 100% there, like in the middle of last year. So I can't imagine how fucking high it is now. I don't know what happens. Like I wrote an article like quite early on in this whole saga, and I was like, well, like, do you know what modern monetary theory is?
No, I don't know much about it. I've heard of it.
So basically, it's the idea that like a government, as long as like the economy is fairly stable, can just continue to print money, because by growing the economy, it will basically make sure that the debt to GDP ratio never like gets out of control, and because you're going to be spending hopefully that money in the economy, that it will help to increase the GDP ratio, and therefore you can kind of just like print and spend what you want as long as you're spending it on stuff that's going to help to grow the economy. And I kind of said that like, well, we're going to fucking see how true that is, but now in this year. But then it's kind of difficult to say with like just with everything being shut down. Like this isn't a normal economic like period at all. So I have no idea what's going to happen.
Yeah, I've seen really prominent, I don't remember who it was, but a prominent economists make that argument that that's what we did after World War II. We had all this debt from World War II, and everyone was like, what are we going to do? How do we pay this debt? And you actually don't pay it back. You just print more money and then grow the economy, and the debt becomes negligible. So it's not that big of a deal. And that's what they're doing right now. But people were like, dude, we're not growing the economy. Everything's shut down. We're just printing money. So we're not doing that. Modern monetary theory is failing right now.
Yeah, I guess we'll see what happens. But I mean, talking about another theory that we have no idea what's going to happen. You are a proponent of graphene. Like you've talked about it like a fair amount on TimCast that I've seen. Like, what is it actually? Like exactly, and like why do you believe that is the future?
I would encourage anyone that's listening to look it up online for a picture under images just to follow along. It's a mono layer of atomic carbon. So it's latticed hexagonally. It looks like a honeycomb. And it's just one atom thick. So this monoatomic layer, I guess you would call it. And it's an incredibly powerful structure. It's stronger than steel. it's more deformable than paper. It's lighter than, I don't know. What's lighter than, it's lighter than a lot of things. And it's electrically conductive. There it is on the right. My God, look at this stuff. It's electrically conductive. It can store charge. It's a super capacitor. It's a capacitor as well. And you could make like clothing out of it that's touch screen. You can make wallpaper. You can make cars, strong cars. You can alloy it with all sorts of stuff. You can eat it. It's pure carbon. You can eat it. They found it when they had Scotch tape, and they accidentally had Scotch tape on graphite, and they peeled it off, and it peeled off in this hexagonally layered carbon structure. Like, what is this? Like 2001 or 2 or something. And these scientists won the Nobel Prize for the discovery. And ever since, people have been trying to figure out, how do we mass produce this stuff? And also, what are we going to use it on? Those are the two big questions. From the research I've done, it looks like we're going to hit peak adoption in 2029. So I think the sooner we get ahead of the curve we get, the richer we could get. Like if we want to make the United States or whatever, I'm not even that nationalist. I just want to make like a sustainable system where we're using the people to build the stuff and to learn how to make it out of like flash graphene, you know, make it out of trash, condense it from carbon dioxide and use it so that we can like we can balance the levels of carbon dioxide in the air, and then produce stuff with it and then give it away to people for free. So we kind of subsidize this new industry.
Okay, so like you're saving the planet by sucking the carbon dioxide out of the air to then use to create graphene to give away to the people.
Yeah, instead of mining. I think mining is not very sustainable. So I want to make sure we could mine it out of the carbon out of the earth, but I'm afraid that that would get out of hand. We could always mine it from the moon and stuff like that, but pulling it out of the air is very interesting to me. I think in New Zealand they had success depositing onto a substrate. I'm not sure what. And what concerns me is that we'll end up pulling too much carbon dioxide out of the air if we go that route, and then we'll start to compete with the trees for the carbon dioxide. We'll be like, we need to burn more oil, we need to burn more coal, we need more carbon dioxide. But if we know that going into it and we plan ahead for it, I think we can balance it out so that we just reuse the carbon dioxide that we're creating and kind of bring it down to a good level for the trees.
Yeah, I mean, something that I've read about was that like the carbon dioxide in the atmosphere, like 50 million or 100 million years ago, was like way more intense, and I can't remember why. I think it's because like the amount of like stuff that volcanoes were like spewing out of the ground, and it meant that like plants and trees grew like stupid big because like they had so much carbon dioxide to absorb, and it was like so intense that and like that's something that Carolyn Steele, who wrote this great book Zootopia, talked about. She was talking about how like the increased carbon dioxide in our air is making like plants and like crops and stuff like grow bigger.
Oh, wow.
But like it doesn't make them better. It doesn't make them more healthy. It just makes them bigger, just because of there's extra carbon dioxide in the atmosphere. So they have more, they've more, because like plants need like carbon dioxide and light to photosynthesize. That's all they need really, basically, and water. But like that, she was saying how it's like fast food for plants, so it makes them go big, but it's not healthy for them.
Oh wow, we're making the plants fat. Oh, obesity truly is a global epidemic.
Yeah, and then there's like a thing that's going on right now where the world is actually like greening. There's more like greenery on the planet than there has been for a while because of the extra carbon dioxide. But that could also be just because like of ice melting in places like Siberia and Greenland and whatnot, and there's like more exposed greenery, I guess.
It definitely seems like we're coming out of the ice age. That Utah study, and there may have been more. That was the first one I found that says we're still in the ice age and we're in an interglacial period where the things are still melting, is very interesting. I was for a long time worried about the temperature rising, but I think it's supposed to.
Yeah, I mean the temperature rising like just alone doesn't really concern me as much as like the pollution, the acidification of the oceans, and just like what happens to like our ecosystems, because like they can hold on, like the earth will be here a long time after humans, probably, unless humans get like super fucking amazing. But like what concerns me more is like what happens when the temperature is rising faster than ecosystems can keep up with. We might be going through this like period of like weird like ecological upheaval that I'm not sure that we're ready for.
Yeah, microplastics are a problem. But I was reading a study that they figured out how to turn microplastics into, I think, back into gas by electrifying them in a solution. Might have even been salt water, and then so those should be pretty easy to deal with if we can get our act together. I'm concerned with like the long run because they say the sun is expanding and will one day cook and then consume the earth. So I'm thinking of the sun as like a fuel tank, and when it runs out of fuel, it expands. So the mass, it loses mass, but it gets bigger. And so if we can keep pumping it with fuel, we should be able to balance the size of the sun and make it so it stops expanding, just like, and then preserve our planet that way so that it doesn't get too hot. And then the way I was thinking of doing that is with an electro laser. So you basically electrify gas, turn it into, and then shoot the sun with the laser. Because at first I was like, we're just going to shoot hydrogen into it. But that seemed really weird. Like, what do we do? Drop hydrogen? No. So if we can just like aim lasers at the sun and hit it with electro, that might actually work.
That sounded very Bond villain origin-y.
Yeah, it might be. I don't think we need to do it immediately, but
I think we got like a billion years before the sun's set to
yeah,
start.
yeah. So we got some time. I'm glad I thought of it now.
Yeah, exactly. You get to work.
Let's do it. So I'll spread the word.
Yeah. I mean, have you ever seen Doctor Who?
Oh,
yeah. Sorry.
did you hear me?
Yeah, my internet whited out there for a second. It's all good. Should be back.
Oh, cool.
So yeah, no, it was someone.
A couple episodes. Oh, what's that?
It's just it was someone trying to call me, and I'm using a hotspot on my phone.
Oh, nice. This technology is amazing, dude.
I know. Like I can't get like sometimes I just think about it. I'm like, this is so mad. Like you're somewhere in America and I'm sat here in Austria and we're just like having a video chat in real time.
In real time, dude. Wow.
I gotta say, actually, I love the way on Timcast you guys never actually like reveal exactly where you are. It's kind of like the Simpsons joke where they're always making the piss about where Springfield is.
I love it. Yeah, it's great. We're in the middle of nowhere. That's one way to word it.
But like the Doctor Who that they had like with the first episode of like the reboot when I was younger, they had was like when they took, or the second episode they took Rose to the future when the sun finally expanded, but they'd held back like the expansion of the sun for like I don't know, hundreds of years in order for it to be sold as a show for people to watch when they finally like released it, and it like explodes and consumes the earth.
Oh God.
It's like, I mean, like realistically, that's probably what's going to happen. Like if they can figure out the technology to do it, like of course they're going to sell front row seats.
Yeah, I was concerned with how people wanted to do billboards in the sky, like light billboards. And I think they were doing them in Russia. And really? They said that a lot of people were like legislating that it was considered like light pollution. So that companies will not be able to do that. I'm glad. The sky is like a natural resource, like the stars. And
yeah, I mean, I spent like in the summer, or not even the summer, just like before this like winter season, like here started, I got to spend a night sleeping in like, we have like a little hut that my boss owns on like the ski piste, and I got to spend a night up there before the season started, so there was no one around, and I just spent like 2 hours. It's like about 2,000 meters above sea level, and like there was no one around. I'm like in the middle of the mountains, like snow everywhere, and I just lay on our bar outside and just looked at the stars for like about 2 hours. It was the most stunning thing I have ever seen. Like just like, because you could see like the whole outline of the Milky Way in the sky, and like that really makes me think about like what it must have been like for those like ancient civilizations who just, they had like the full force of the stars, like not like diluted by any of like our city lights now. Like what must the skies have been like at night?
Yeah, sometimes I'll look at the sky and like my eyes will adjust their focus and all of a sudden see all these stars that were there, but like I wasn't letting the light in properly. And then all this, it's like, wow, how deep can that go?
I mean, there's more galaxies in the sky than there are grains of sand on all of the beaches on planet Earth.
What the fuck, dude?
Yeah. Awesome. Yeah, I know, right? It's like, yeah, but there's definitely no life anywhere else. Like,
I think there is. Are you familiar with like the planet Thea and like the theory? It's kind of a theory, but like the formation of our solar system.
no,
It
I'm
seems
not.
like our solar system. I don't know if you would call it anomalous, but I don't know how many years it was. It was either 4.6 billion or 3.6 billion, something like that, years ago when the solar system formed. And it looks like the sun exploded out all these planets, like belched them out, 24 different planetoids. And they don't know exactly why. They think maybe that there was like a binary star system that collided and then became the sun and then arced out all this junk, including like a bunch of rocky planetoids and a bunch of gas planets, including Saturn, which has like a leftover heat signature, almost like a star. And so, or could have been that. But anyway, all these planets were like ramming into each other, and it's just this violent, chaotic mess. And at one point, Earth and this other planetoid came into the same orbit, and they call it Thea. And this other planet caught up to Earth and smashed through it, and came out the other side as this ball of like liquid metal, iron, and it caught in the orbit of the Earth and became the moon. And that it's like this hollow, metallic, crusty, carbon sphere. And that it's what seems like, if that's makes me think like they've studied where they like fired bombs into the moon to see if it's solid, and they think maybe it's hollow because of the way it vibrates. They don't know for sure.
They fired bombs at the moon?
Yeah, they hit it with
Like,
like missiles or something. I think it was NASA that did it. Yeah, crazy. I know, it's awesome. And it seems to like float between the Earth and the sun to become at the perfect distance between us to cover the sun exactly. So I wonder if, and the reason we are what we are, a lot of it is because of the moon. So I don't know if it's an anomaly that two planets smashed into each other and one of them came out and formed the moon, or if that actually happens all over the universe. Like if it's like an equation or like a pattern of just what happens when something, stars collide, or
I don't know. I mean, like a lot of planets have moons.
yeah, but they don't have moons like our moon. Our moon's really unique,
Really?
in shape and in makeup. It's made up of the same stuff that's the inside of the Earth is made up of. Uh, maybe the other moons in the solar system have similar things, but I think that they were more like floating garbage from like collisions and stuff. I don't know. I'm not definitely. I would like to talk to a cosmologist more about that.
Oh, I'm gonna have to call. I have a really good friend of mine who did physics and astrophysics at university, and like we used to just like I just like pop around his house um in the afternoon, and we get high and just get him to talk to us about physics. Just be like, talk about space.
Yeah, and I encourage everyone to listen to that guy instead of me about this stuff, because I really am. This is stuff I've read that I may or may not be recalling properly.
No, I've definitely heard that the moon was formed by another planet crashing into the Earth. That I can confirm is real.
There's
Um,
video on YouTube. You can watch like a simulation of what they think it looked like. Planet Thea ramming Earth. It's pretty
yeah,
cool.
I'll splice it into this video when I'm editing. Actually, I'll put it in here.
Nice.
Yeah. So we got way off Earth here. Like
So
I'm
maybe there's life. Maybe there is a lot of life in the universe, or maybe it's very, very rare. But that doesn't, like you said, there's more galaxies than grains of sand. So maybe very rare doesn't actually means quite a bit.
Yeah. I mean, there's like this thing that where if we can't figure out how to do faster than light travel, or like some sort of like wormhole sort of travel that they think is theoretically possible, that there's only like a certain number of like stars within our like reachable like trajectory, because like the speed that the universe is expanding means that even if we're going at the speed of light, like the things will be moving away from us so fast, and the universe is spreading out so much that we won't actually be able to get beyond like a certain number of stars. So we have to
Interesting.
figure out like faster than light travel or some kind of wormhole.
Yeah, I have a
Um,
friend, Jeremy Riss. He's an alien scientist on YouTube. They're working on warp drive right now.
oh, really? What's his name? I
Yeah,
have to look this
his
up.
name is Jeremy Riss, RYS, alien scientist. And if you ever want to have him on the show, I can talk to him and see
Oh yeah, man, that
about.
would be cool as
He's
fuck.
very interesting. Yeah, his research is top notch. They're working on like anti-gravity right now.
Oh, really?
Yeah, like matching electron spins to make things way less. It's fascinating.
Whoa. Okay, that is cool. I was watching this great podcast with Lex Friedman and Avi Loeb the other day, and he was saying that we are being ridiculous if we think that like trying to create alien tech on Earth is the most cost-effective way. He was like, we should be looking for it outside of Earth because it'd be cheaper to just take it than figure it out ourselves.
That's open source.
Yeah, exactly.
Maybe it is out there.
Yeah, like he thought that. Did you see there was like, I don't know, it must have been 3 or 4 years ago. There was that like weird object that kind of like just sort of passed through the solar system. I think it's Oumuamua, I think is the name of it. And it was this like big, long, kind of like rocky asteroid thing. And he's pretty convinced that that was aliens.
Interesting.
Because it's like, I think it's one of the first things like in our recorded history, at least, that's passed through the solar system from like outside of the solar system, essentially. And he's saying that like the like to be thinking that that's not it, like to just like write the idea off is ridiculous.
Yeah, that's a good point. It, like the way synchronicity works, which seems like a real function of reality, kind of hard to describe, but it wouldn't be out of the realm of possibility that we would come into contact with aliens now while we want to and while we're ready to interact with them technologically to a point. Like we're about to tap fusion and figure out warp drive, and so maybe it's all happening right now.
Yeah, maybe. Did you hear what the former head of the Israeli Secret Service said? I think it like some point at the end of last year. Yeah, like that the aliens are waiting off planet for us to like calm down, basically.
Yeah, that's interesting. I feel like if there were aliens, they'd be interacting with us with light. Like when you shine a laser and a cat chases the laser around, like they'd be shining a laser at Earth and then like maybe hitting us with frequency of some sort. That would be the easiest, cheapest, and fastest way to interact with a foreign star system. Would be like shining something at it or like sending a wave at it. But you know, traveling, warp drive, they seem like real things.
Yeah, I mean,
maybe they're sending drones or
they're theoretically possible at least.
Yeah.
Like, so do you think the light are those light balls that people suggest that they see?
Yeah, a lot of time. Well, I don't think that they are, but stuff like that could be like we could be being interacted with by that kind of stuff. I don't know. Could be. It's a funny, you know, weird. Yeah. I have no proof of it. I have even no evidence of it, so I can't really go in that direction.
Yeah, I mean, like, have you heard the story of Travis Wilton?
No.
So he was, I'd never heard this story until he was on Joe Rogan, like a month ago or something, and I was listening to it, and I was just like mind blown. It's like one of the most credible alien abduction stories. So he was like driving through the forest, like I'll just paraphrase here. He'll do a better job. Go check it out if you want more detail. But like he was like driving through the forest with him and like a bunch of guys who'd been doing like forestry work. They'd been like clearing pine needles or something to make it like less flammable. And anyway, so then they see this light, and then they're like, no, it's probably just some campers. And then they all kind of get like curious about it. So they like drive over to it, and then they like get to about 100 feet away, and they see this like what they describe as UFO, basically. And then this guy, Travis Wilton, kind of like goes up closer to it and then gets zapped by this, like what people described as like this beam of electricity or light or something. And then he was like thrown back, and then he woke up like in this UFO, and he says there was like aliens like standing over him, and he like tried to like shove them back or whatever. And then like there's a whole story to it. And then he woke up like after being like a gas mask over his face in the end of the story, and he wakes up in the same clearing that he was that they first spotted the UFO in, but 5 days later. And there were 7 people sworn statements to this day that say they saw this happen. And there was like a whole bunch of like chatter on like reports of like UFOs in the sky in that area that night. And like apparently there was like an official like FBI or CIA investigation into it and everything. And like you just listen to the guy talk, and you're like, at the same time as you're just thinking this is total rubbish, you're just like, why would this guy still lie? And why would those 7 people lie? And why would there have been all those sightings? And like you're trying to balance this like just like mind-boggling idea that like, okay, I can totally entertain the fact that there's quite possibly life in the universe apart from us, But like for them to have like come to Earth and like taken this dude, it like absolutely like blows my mind.
Yeah. They like magnetism, and when you have like power, an unlimited power source, it can do very strange things. Like especially like if you have unlimited, I mean, we can do a lot with just like a magnet. We have like acoustic levitation where we can like pump chemicals into water and like float water around and move it around the room with vibration, with like sound. So like if you have an unlimited, nearly unlimited power source like fusion, the amount of like weird things you could do with magnets. I don't know if you could literally like beam someone somewhere, maybe. But I mean, so I don't know. I don't know if he thinks he touched the thing and he got like zapped inside of it and then it reappeared inside. If that was if you, I don't know. But I mean, once you tap fusion, man, once you have like, there's a lot of possibilities.
Yeah, I mean, it's Tom DeLonge talked about has talked a lot about like 0 point energy, where there's like more energy in like like a square, like a tiny like pocket of air because of like the space between the like the atoms. I think it was he's talking about
The Casimir effect.
I'm not honestly sure, but I just like. But then I've seen some serious scientists be like, he's talking rubbish.
Well, have you seen Nassim Harame's Schwarzschild proton paper?
I have not.
It's he's calculated Einstein's field equation and essentially unified the field theory, showing that there's like one force, and he's explaining that the vacuum is of equal density to throughout. So like a black hole is the same density as a proton. And he's also showing like every proton is two protons revolving around each other at the speed of light, feeding energy into the vacuum and then back feeding energy and information from the vacuum back to you. And like that there's so much energy in the vacuum that, like you're saying, and what Tom is insinuating, that we can actually get, if we figure out how to tap into that energy, or that, I don't know if it's more accurately described as vibration, that we should be able to power systems with it or move systems with it, which then you can translate into powering them.
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of like, I love to speculate on this shit.
Yeah. I love when the science meets the speculation.
It gets
like
exciting.
Math. Yeah, dude.
I mean, like, sorry, go ahead.
Oh, I was just thinking about graphene and quartz and crystals and stuff like that. And then what you can do with lasers once you refine, get smaller and smaller and smaller, the way where microprocessors are getting half as big and then smaller and then half as big and half as big and you're just getting smaller and smaller. Like, dude, computing, it's going to be nano computations, and I'm very excited. But what were you going to say?
No, I was going to say, I actually don't remember, but like, have you heard China have cracked quantum computing reportedly?
No.
Like that's like one of my friends convinced that like if they get that, if they really have cracked that they could just be like days away from just being like light years beyond us, because who is it? Sam Harris talks about AI sometimes, and he's talking about how like the if we created like a computer that was able to process information at the same speed or like the same way as a human brain, that like because electrical circuits are so much more efficient than biological ones, that it would be able to perform like 20,000 years of thought in like a day. And wow. Yeah, and that's a terrifying idea. Like that like if we crack that kind of technology, like it would like theoretically help us make that jump. Like technologically, it could help us work out a lot of shit, but it could also go rogue so fast.
Yeah, that's part of why I'm obsessed with free software. I think that if we can, at the very least, watch the artificial intelligence build itself, because it's going to start writing its own code. And if the code is private and we don't know what it's writing, it's kind of like it's gonna go haywire like 20,000 times faster than we realize. But if we can at least watch it go haywire because the software is free, then we'll know how it got there and maybe how to circumvent it next time or how to undo it. I don't know if we'll necessarily ever be able to stop it, but at least we know how it became what it is.
I mean, like what? Oh yeah, here right here. I'm looking at this. The Google Translate AI created its own universal language.
Yeah,
it's called Interlingua, and it previously taught its artificial intelligence to play games. Hang on, I'll share this with you. Um, yeah, Google AI created its own universal language. And yeah, that's mad that they turned on its neural machine translation system to help automatically improve how it translates language. So yeah, it basically created its own language in order to like better translate between things.
Oh,
Yeah. As soon as we don't know what they're saying, then we are fucked.
I love it. Humans have fucked this planet so hard without guidance. Like, I'm down, man. Let's integrate. I think that's my belief, is that we need some sort of massive divine inspiration. And if that comes in the form of a machine, whatever, it's carbon based, I don't care. Silicon based, doesn't really matter.
I mean, do you think it's possible for like a computer to have sentience in the way that we like understand it?
I don't know. The human brain is so complex. It is a type of quantum computer, and neurons, the way they form, is pretty interesting. It's like electricity passing through this amorphous goo. I don't know. It's a good question. I don't know much about it.
Yeah, I guess it's more that like consciousness as we kind of understand it is like our like us like being able to like realize like who and what we are and like think about our actions in those sorts of terms. And it's like beyond what like okay, say like a dog can like understand that like this is where I go to eat and whatnot, but it doesn't really like understand the concept of a dog. Like, but we understand like what a dog is. And then there's like, you can get beyond that. You like go to like chimpanzees and monkeys and apes, and they can like create some like a lot more sort of complex forward planning. And they think that there's like some apes in some jungles somewhere that are like moving into the Stone Age because they're creating tools and like using stone stuff to like do stuff. And then you get to us where we can like abstractly consider the concept of like what a human is and like what it means to be human and like make long-term plans in ways that like other animals aren't capable of. Like, I don't know. I don't know whether an AI would like actually be capable of understanding what it was. It's like a weird, we don't really understand consciousness, and therefore it's very difficult to say whether it like a machine is going to be able to do.
Yeah. I need to have a conversation with an AI.
Like, have you seen this thing that there's like suggestions that the human brain resembles the universe?
I've seen images like side by side.
Yeah. Let me just share this one here with you. It's from Sacred Geometry International. It's like
That's Randall Carlson, right?
Yeah, Randall Carlson, exactly. So like this is like the left is the human brain, and then
wow, I would have said the right is the human brain.
Yeah, and then
what's the right?
The right is a section of cosmological simulation.
Jeez.
So it's like way zoomed out, I think. So yeah, you would have thought the one on the right was the human brain, like, wouldn't you? You would have said the one on the left was the.
Yep. Yeah, the cosmic microwave background radiation, when you zoom out on it with a radio telescope, it looks like kind of like neurons.
Yeah. I mean, so what if we are just like, our universe is just a giant brain for some other. I think
it makes a lot of sense, like the fractal nature of reality.
Because like a friend of mine is always sort of prompting me on like is like, Josh, why don't you believe firmly that there's a God? And I've basically conceded like the argument to the point where I'm like, right, okay, there has to have been something. What that something is, or like whether I can actually truly understand what that might be is something else. But what if our entire universe is just like God's brain?
We had a big conversation about that last night in the bonus segment on TimCastIRL with Seamus. Fascinating and deep. People are talking about near-death experiences. What is conscious? I don't know, man. I love this conversation. I'm gonna have to go soon. I didn't set like how much time I would be able to, how long we were gonna go for, but I actually had
that's right.
Yeah, this is awesome though.
Yeah, man, I've had a really great time chatting.
We have plans to go to Best Buy. We're getting some technology.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Anything else you think we should touch on before?
Yeah, the only things I really want to ask is like what's it like sitting in the room with like pros like Tim and Luke and like Alex Jones, like we were talking before, what's it like to just be able to sort of like sit back and like bask in like these like, yeah, really
epic,
brilliant
dude.
people.
I remember that night, the first night Alex came on the show, Mike Malice was there, and I was listening across the room. It was when my table was like further away. We just had a corner table, and I was like listening, and they were just talking for like a long time. I barely said anything on that show, and I was kind of like drooping and like starting to be like, oh, my mind was wandering. I was like, I'm not talking. Why am I here? And I was like, dude, you're sitting with a fucking Alex Jones, Mike Malice, and Tim Pool. This is epic. And then I got so into it. I was like, oh man, this moment is a moment in time, dude. Bathe in it, just acknowledge, experience. And then I got way back into it after that. It's great. I'm reminded that I live with geniuses, and it's such an honor and like a responsibility to stay on the level and to stay clear and focused, because I really want to help the movement.
I mean, you do a great job when you're sitting there. Like, it's like you kind of have like almost a free pass. Like, you don't have to say anything, but you get to sort of just sit there and just take it all in and then like contribute when you want to. Like, you got a pretty sweet gig.
Yeah, I could probably get away with really not saying anything at all for like an hour and a half, and then Tim will be like, Ian, what do you think? He might at some point be like, what do you think about it? Like, if I say nothing, but I could definitely say nothing. There have been episodes where I've said like, 20, 30 words because the guest is so engaging and on such a roll. And ultimately, me and Tim in the early days talked about doing a show where kind of like a Rogan podcast, where I'd be like the Brian Red Band to help him get it started and then like kind of phase out. And Tim would just interview the guests. But it's kind of parlayed, and like he had Adam on the show for a long time. It's become more of a conversation amongst friends. So that's kind of where it's at now. Yeah,
no, I did. Like, I feel like the dynamic works well at the minute, at least for me, like listening. Like it's a nice sort of mix between like Tim sort of guiding the show, like the guest. Luke, I think, adds a really cool aspect to it, and then you've got your own kind of thing that you're bringing to it. It's a really good mix, I feel.
Yeah, it's so fun to work with those guys, man. I was such a huge fan of Luke too in the early days. It's just like magic that he's here now.
Yeah, I mean, I'd never heard of him until like last year.
He's incredible. His work on 9/11 is really impressive.
I haven't looked at his 9/11 stuff.
Yeah, he's gone very, very deep into the 9/11 experience. That crazy shit.
Wow. Right. Okay. Well, I will have to check that out. But yeah, man, thanks. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Yeah, dude. Thanks for having me.
No problem. If I'm ever in the States, I will give you a shout.
Sounds great.
Thanks so much for listening. If you haven't already and you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe to this podcast and to our mailing list. And don't forget, my book, Brexit, The Establishment Civil War, is now available for pre-order on Amazon. You'll find the link in the description below. Until next time, thanks so much for listening.